Melanie Porter used to kiss her husband like he was her entire world, until the day he lost everything, and she kicked him out like trash, completely unaware he was secretly worth $100 million. Jonathan Porter wiped sweat off his forehead as he loaded another bag of flour into the back of his pickup truck. He'd grown up a farm boy, but today he was a respected electrical engineer, well known in his company for being both brilliant and humble. What no one knew, not even his beautiful wife Melanie, was that Jonathan also held a quiet fortune. His late grandfather, an oil tycoon nobody talked about, had left Jonathan a massive inheritance locked in a private trust, set to be handed over in full on his 35th birthday. He kept the secret for one simple reason: he wanted to be loved for who he was, not for what he had. Life with Melanie felt like proof he'd made the right choice. She was sweet, supportive, and dotted every room with laughter. They lived in a cozy house on Maple Street, sipping hot cocoa under plaid blankets and dancing in the kitchen barefoot. Jonathan, hardworking as ever, paid the bills, planned surprise vacations, and insisted on opening Melanie's car door every morning, even when she rolled her eyes and told him he didn't have to. But as Jonathan's 35th birthday approached and his trust countdown drew closer, Melanie started whispering about wanting a bigger life. "Nora bought a BMW," she said one night, scrolling through social media over dinner. "Her husband owns a tech firm. Meanwhile, we're still driving that dusty pickup." Jonathan squeezed her hand. "I promise, your fairy tale life is coming. Just be patient with me." She smiled thinly, but her eyes didn't match. 2 weeks later, Jonathan was driving home under a thunderstorm, thinking about finally revealing the secret to his wife, when a truck skidded across the slick road and slammed into him head-on. Metal crunched. Glass shattered. Then nothing. He woke up 3 days later surrounded by sterile white walls. Thunderous pain shot up his spine when he tried to move. "Sir, please don't struggle," a nurse said gently, "you've suffered severe spinal damage. You survived, but your legs may never work again." Jonathan's heart went still. All he could think about was Melanie. How would she handle this? An hour later, she arrived, mascara perfect, hair styled, expensive coat dripping with rain. She stared at him lying helpless on the hospital bed, her mouth pinned into something trying to look like pity, but didn't quite succeed. "Oh my God, John," she whispered, clutching her designer purse. "What have you done to yourself?" Jonathan tried to smile through pain. "I'm still here, babe. That's what matters. We'll get through this together, right?" Melanie looked at him. And for the first time since he met her, he wasn't sure of the answer. Jonathan stayed in the hospital for 6 long weeks. Tubes, machines, physio sessions, and whispered prayers filled each day. At first, Melanie visited regularly, bringing gourmet salads, scented candles, and her trademark red lipstick smile. But gradually, her visits shortened. She complained about the smell of disinfectant, the drive, the stress of watching him suffer. Nurses noticed she spent more time answering phone calls than holding his hand. Jonathan tried to stay positive. "We'll get through this," he told her, gripping the metal rails of his hospital bed as he practiced moving his toes. "I'll walk again. I'll get back to work. I just need time." Melanie's smile grew thinner each day. "Bills are piling up, John. Your job cut you off after the accident. We've got nothing coming in except what's left in our savings. How am I supposed to keep our house floating?" Jonathan tried to hide how much those words cut. He didn't mention the trust fund. The lawyer handling it had called twice, excited about finalizing everything in just 2 more months. Jonathan had wanted to surprise Melanie, maybe even throw a private yacht party to reveal they were suddenly multimillionaires overnight. But now he hesitated. She hadn't once said, "I love you," since the crash. At home, Melanie started letting herself enjoy small luxuries again, a new diamond necklace purchased on credit, weekly cocktails with her girlfriends downtown, a whisper of perfume as she sauntered from spa appointments. Jonathan didn't notice at first, until the hospital sent a staff member to inform him that his credit cards kept getting declined. He called her that night, worry cracking his voice. "Babe, are you spending too much? Maybe slow down a little." Melanie cut him off sharply. "I deserve nice things. I've been suffering right alongside you. Don't make me feel guilty for trying to breathe. You can't give me what I need anymore. Not love, not money, not a future. Don't police me like I'm your nurse." Jonathan's throat burned as he whispered, "I didn't mean it like that." She sighed as if he were a stubborn child. "John, I married a strong, handsome man who could take care of me. Not someone I have to feed and bathe. Maybe this new life isn't for me." Jonathan stared at his phone long after the call ended. Outside his hospital window, the sky exploded with crimson streaks of sunset, beautiful and cruel. Melanie stopped visiting completely the next week, claiming her mental health needed distance. She didn't answer his calls anymore. One rainy afternoon, a hospital social worker approached Jonathan's bed gently. "Mr. Porter, your wife asked us to forward the divorce papers to your room. She's filing under irreconcilable differences." Jonathan didn't speak. He couldn't. His heart detonated inside his chest, not from the wheelchair he might never leave, not from the pain of broken bones, but from the realization that the woman he had once protected from the world had become the weapon that destroyed him. And she had no idea she had just divorced a man about to inherit $100 million. Melanie didn't waste time once the divorce papers were signed. She hosted a girls' night at their home before even moving Jonathan's belongings out. Champagne bottles clinked against marble countertops as she toasted to "new beginnings" in a house still filled with his scent. To her friends, she joked, "Why keep a broken man when life is full of whole ones?" They laughed as though cruelty were fashion. Nobody asked where Jonathan was now. Nobody cared. Meanwhile, Jonathan's hospital discharge came with little fanfare. Rain soaked the pavement as he was wheeled to a rideshare by a nurse. Melanie never showed. No flowers, no farewell. He sat silently in the back seat as the driver took him, not home, but to a cheap assisted living motel on the outskirts of town. Melanie had already emptied their joint account, sold his watch, even pawned his college championship ring. He had nothing left but a duffel bag of clothes and a folded-up letter in his jacket pocket from his trust attorney, final release of inheritance scheduled in 47 days. The room smelled like bleach and loneliness. Jonathan lay in his narrow bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, his mind flickering back to the way Melanie used to dance in their kitchen wearing his sweatshirts and calling him Captain Forever. He wondered when forever had expired. Across town, Melanie had already replaced him with a new companion, Brandon Hayes, a flashy real estate businessman who drove a sleek black Tesla and bragged about his golf swing. She clung to his arm in photos, her smile suddenly wider than it had ever been in her marriage. She captioned their Instagram shot, "Upward and onward, life only goes forward for those who know their worth." Jonathan saw it. He saw everything. He scrolled silently through her feed at 3 a.m., each picture punching a hole deeper into his ribcage. Melanie and Brandon at five-star restaurants. Melanie in designer gowns he'd never seen before. Melanie laughing on a rooftop bar where he'd once promised to take her someday, when things got better. He turned off the phone and pressed it to his chest, breathing in agony, until his eyes hardened. Agony began to curdle into resolve. If Melanie wanted forward, he would give her forward. 47 days, he murmured into the darkness, the letters from his grandfather's lawyer burning against his heartbeat. Just 47 days, then let's see who laughs last. He spent every waking moment after that building himself back together, piece by broken piece. Physical therapy twice a day, ignoring the excruciating pain as he forced his legs to twitch. He refused painkillers. Refused pity. He shaved, cut his hair, and started practicing standing between parallel bars, sweat pouring down his temples. On day 21, he walked 2 steps. Day 32, he walked 10. And on day 47, standing tall on shaking legs, Jonathan Porter suited up in a crisp navy blazer, rolled his shoulders back, and stepped into his lawyer's Manhattan office to receive a wire transfer of $100 million. Jonathan left the Manhattan law firm carrying nothing but a slim black folder and a new fire in his veins. His $100 million inheritance sat quietly in a freshly created trust account under the name JP Holdings. He didn't want flashy headlines or public attention, not yet. While the city glittered around him, he checked into a high-end penthouse under an alias, changed his phone number, and hired a private wealth management team. The world was about to meet a new version of him, not Jonathan the broken husband, but Mr. Porter, the mysterious investor. He told his advisors one thing. I want to help people who were abandoned, and ensure certain others learn the price of betrayal. Across town, Melanie posed in front of Brandon's Tesla outside a trendy hotel in Nashville. They had flown for a quick luxury getaway, she bragged online. But what she didn't post was that Brandon's real estate deals were starting to crumble. A shady land purchase turned into a lawsuit. Investors pulled out. His account was frozen. Her once generous new lover now checked price tags and told her they had to slow down. Melanie laughed it off, until the hotel receptionist tapped politely, telling them their card was declined. Brandon muttered something about money tied up. Melanie felt sudden panic claw her throat. She was not about to go back to living cheap. She needed a plan. Jonathan, meanwhile, was 2 steps ahead. Using a team of discreet assistants, he quietly purchased the struggling hotel Melanie and Brandon were currently staying in, acquiring majority control through a shell corporation. Within hours, the hotel's policy changed, and Melanie received a notice that her suite must be vacated immediately due to behavioral complaints. She stormed to the desk, red-faced. "Do you know who I am?" The manager remained calm. "Yes, ma'am." The new owner gave direct instructions. Melanie scoffed. "Tell your owner to call Melanie Porter. He'll regret messing with me." The manager raised a brow. "Funny. I believe he already knows that name quite well." Melanie blinked. Her skin prickled with unease. Back in New York, Jonathan stood by his penthouse window overlooking the Hudson, watching rain scatter against the glass. He checked his secret private Instagram account, an account Melanie didn't know existed, just in time to see pictures of her and Brandon being escorted out of the Nashville hotel with their luggage. Brandon looked furious. Melanie's smile cracked, something haunted flickering behind her eyes. Jonathan did not smile. Revenge, to him, didn't mean destroying her physically. It meant letting her feel exactly what she had left him to drown in: abandonment, humiliation, loss. Only then, he believed, would justice be served. He sent a simple instruction to his assistant. Acquire Brandon Hayes' biggest office building. Eviction notice. Anonymous. Down in Nashville, Melanie's phone pinged. Brandon read his email and swore violently. His company headquarters had just been seized by a mystery investor. They had 14 days to clear out. Melanie's breath came faster. For the first time, it dawned on her. Someone powerful was pushing them toward ruin. And she had no idea the storm was being controlled by the very same man she had tossed aside as worthless. Melanie stalked back and forth across the marble lobby of Brandon's seized headquarters like a caged lioness. Her heels clicked with sharp anger as workers carted out furniture, files, even the espresso machine she bragged about on TikTok. Brandon stood in the corner shouting into his phone. Every banker, lawyer, and investor was mysteriously unavailable. Melanie folded her arms defiantly. "Relax. It's probably some rich old geezer buying everything he can touch to look powerful. We'll bounce back." Brandon glared. "From what, Melanie? Half my properties are getting repossessed. I owe the IRS millions. We're done." Melanie's lip curled. So you're telling me I left my crippled ex-husband to end up with another broke joke? Excuse me? Brandon hissed. She tossed her long hair over her shoulder and strutted outside, trying to keep her swagger as cameras clicked. Reporters had gathered, hungry for scandal. Melanie plastered on a bright smile she had mastered over the years. Everything is fine, she purred into microphones. You know how business goes, sometimes you're up even higher. Inside, her stomach twisted. She had never been poor and she refused to become poor now. Meanwhile, across the city, Jonathan sat with his lawyers and PR advisors in a quiet, glass-walled boardroom. His face was calm, but his mind flashed with memories of Melanie's cold eyes staring at him in that hospital bed. He said only 3 words. Turn up pressure. By midday, Melanie's social media accounts exploded, not with love, but mocking memes. The captioned photos of her stepping out of Brandon's Tesla were now overlaid with words like "Gold Digger Karma" and "House of Cards Fell Down." She frantically refreshed her feeds until she saw something that made her blood run cold. A mysterious new account, "At the Man You Left," had started posting side-by-side pictures of her former life with Jonathan and her new life falling apart. Thousands of comments poured in. She left him when he was crippled, now look at God. Never betray a good man. Plot twist, what if the ex is behind this? Melanie slammed her phone onto the table. Her hands trembled so badly she nearly dropped her purse. She grabbed Brandon. We need to get ahead of this. Find out who's doing this. Destroy them. Brandon frowned. You sure your ex isn't secretly rich or something? This feels personal. Melanie snapped. Don't be ridiculous, Jonathan could barely feed himself. Just then her phone rang. Private number. She answered with shaky composure. Hello. Silence. Then, a voice she recognized, calm, deep, unbothered, the voice of a man she thought was broken forever. Hello, Melanie. Her breath hitched. Jonathan. His response was smooth, glacial. Just wanted to say thank you. Because losing you was the best investment I ever made. Click. The line went dead. And suddenly, for the first time since she left him, Melanie truly felt fear. 2 weeks after that chilling phone call, news outlets across New York exploded with headlines. Mysterious billionaire, Mr. Porter, buys failing companies, donates millions to disabled veterans. Who is the phantom investor helping abandoned men rise again? A photo accompanied the article, Jonathan Porter standing tall in a custom dark suit, jaw sharp, eyes focused, not a wheelchair in sight. Beside him was a striking young woman named Evelyn Pierce, a poised nonprofit strategist with soft curls, who gazed at him proudly during the launch of the Second Chance Foundation, an initiative funding men who had been financially ruined after injury or abandonment. Jonathan cut the ceremonial ribbon, looking every inch the king he was born to be. Reporters noticed he never spoke of his personal life, never mentioned his past. He simply said, "Sometimes the universe lets you be broken, just so you can rebuild yourself into something unshakable." Hours later, Melanie nearly fell off her couch as she watched the news segment. A spoonful of ice cream dripped unnoticed onto her silk blouse. Her lips parted in disbelief. That's Jonathan. Brandon burst in holding an eviction letter. We have to move in 48 hours. This mystery investor is taking everything. But Melanie wasn't listening. Jonathan's face filled the TV screen as Evelyn lightly touched his arm. Melanie's stomach twisted with jealousy. Rage. Horror. She ran to the bedroom, threw on an old trench coat, and called a rideshare to Jonathan's foundation gala, ignoring Brandon's shouts behind her. She had to get to him. At the gala entrance, she stepped out dramatically in heels and red lipstick, assuming he would melt seeing her again. Bodyguards stopped her. I'm Jonathan Porter's wife, she lied confidently. One guard spoke into his earpiece, then shook his head. "Mr. Porter says, and I quote, 'I do not know that woman.'" Melanie's heart slammed against her ribs. "He said what?" "Let me through." Inside the golden ballroom, Jonathan felt the disturbance. He looked toward the entrance calmly. Through glass doors he could clearly see Melanie arguing, frantic. Evelyn gently leaned in toward him with concern. Jonathan didn't flinch. "Everything okay?" she asked. He straightened his cufflinks. "Just a ghost from my past." He turned his back to Melanie and raised a toast to the crowd. "To those who rise after being left for dead." The crowd erupted in applause. Outside, Melanie pulled out her phone and texted Jonathan furiously. "Jonathan, please. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Give me another chance." She stared at the screen, no reply. Minutes later she received a response from a number labeled simply, "No longer available." "Melanie, you dumped a broken man. Congratulations. You now no longer qualify for the man he became." Melanie sank onto the sidewalk in her expensive heels, mascara streaking down her cheeks, watching Jonathan celebrate inside, farther away from her now than he had ever been when he was crippled and broke. Melanie's world collapsed faster than she could catch her breath. First came the eviction. She packed designer shoes into trash bags as Brandon screamed at lawyers down the hallway. They moved into a cramped budget motel beside a freeway. Next came the headline, "Gold Digger Karma, ex-wife who left injured husband now broke." A viral blogger had pieced together her past life with Jonathan and her present downfall. The internet tore her apart. She threw her phone at the wall when she saw comments calling her trash, evil, heartless predator. Brandon blamed everything on her. "If you hadn't ditched your rich ex, we wouldn't be in this mess. He's clearly destroying us." Melanie snapped back. "You were supposed to be richer than him." Brandon stormed out, leaving her alone with flickering motel lights and stale air. For the first time ever, Melanie Porter had no one. Meanwhile, Jonathan's star kept rising. Media dubbed him the silent billionaire. Mysterious, handsome, rumored to be dating the elegant Evelyn Pierce, who now accompanied him to charity events in silky gowns. Photos showed them smiling, standing close. Though he never confirmed their relationship, their chemistry made Melanie's blood boil. She stalked Evelyn online late into the night, scrolling through pictures of the stunning woman laughing with Jonathan at yacht fundraisers, art exhibits, rooftop cocktail parties. Evelyn wore things Melanie used to dream about: class, respect, romance, real love. Desperation finally swallowed Melanie's pride. She boarded a bus to Manhattan, clutching a wrinkled handbag, hair in messy curls, cheap sunglasses failing to hide her shame. She waited outside Jonathan's foundation for 5 hours until his limousine arrived. When Jonathan stepped out in a crisp tailored suit, Evelyn by his side, Melanie ran toward him, tears streaming. "Jonathan, please. I made a mistake. I still love you. You were my husband." His security moved forward, but Jonathan raised a hand, calm, composed, allowing her to approach. Melanie collapsed onto her knees in front of him. "I'm begging you, take me back. I'll be anything you want. I'll take care of you forever. Please, John, please." Evelyn's eyes softened in surprise at the scene, but Jonathan remained almost eerily calm, looking down at the woman who had once left him to rot. "Melanie," he said quietly, voice carrying the weight of every day she had never visited him, "you didn't love me. You loved my ability to feed you." She shook her head, sobbing. "No, I love you. I need you." He leaned slightly closer. "No, you need someone to carry you. But I already carried you once, I won't do it again." Melanie's shoulders shook in uncontrollable sobs. Jonathan turned to Evelyn. "Shall we go?" Evelyn nodded gracefully. The driver opened the car door. Jonathan gave Melanie one last look, not cruel, not angry, just finished. Goodbye, Melanie. May you find yourself, because you'll never find me again. He stepped into the limousine and pulled away, leaving her kneeling on the pavement as flashbulbs from nearby paparazzi captured her collapse forever. Jonathan's life began to glow in ways he had never dared dream. He and Evelyn moved at a graceful rhythm, coffee at sunrise on the balcony overlooking the Hudson, laughter over sushi dates, quiet evenings where she read and he sketched designs for new community centers under his foundation. She never asked about his money. She only asked about his heart. One morning, while reading the newspaper, Evelyn looked up at him and said, "You know, you don't need revenge to prove that you've won." He smiled gently. True. But sometimes, justice is a beautiful final chapter. She raised a brow. One last chapter, then promise me you'll close that book forever. Jonathan linked his pinky with hers. Promise. Across the river, Melanie sank deeper into humiliation. Her fall from grace had become public entertainment. Memes. TikToks. Reaction videos analyzing her crying scene on the sidewalk went viral under hashtags like #GoldDiggerGoneWrong and #XWinsBillion. Living in a shared hostel now, she stared at herself in a cracked mirror, dark circles, fried hair, bruised pride. She tried messaging old friends. They ignored her. She texted Brandon. He blocked her. She even searched for jobs, but every interview ended with them recognizing her face from viral gossip blogs. One midnight, unable to take it anymore, Melanie created a YouTube video titled, "My Truth, I Didn't Know My Ex Was a Billionaire." She poured mascara-streaked tears into the camera, begging for sympathy. Instead, she woke up to 2.5 million views, and comments like, "Girl, you left him 'cause he couldn't walk. Bye. Queen Evelyn, bitter Melanie. You reap what you sow." Jonathan watched the video silently from his study. Evelyn stepped behind him and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "You don't have to see this," she whispered. He exhaled slowly. "Just one last move." He instructed his assistant to quietly buy the national daytime TV show, Heartlines Live, famous for confronting wrongdoers publicly. They sent Melanie an invitation disguised as a chance to clear her name on a global platform. Melanie, hopeful again, agreed immediately. She dreamed about dressing up, redeeming herself, maybe winning viewers back. She imagined Jonathan watching and realizing she was truly sorry. Maybe, just maybe, he'd reach out. The day of filming arrived. Melanie wore a cheap knockoff designer dress and heavy makeup to patch her tired face. Backstage, a producer whispered, "The special surprise guest will come out later to give his side of the story." Her heartbeat soared. Jonathan is coming, she thought. Under bright studio lights, the host asked Melanie, "So, you dumped your husband when he became crippled and broke?" She smiled nervously, ready to defend herself. "When our surprise guest arrives," the host continued, smiling wickedly, "you'll get to face the consequences of that decision, in front of 50 million live viewers." Melanie's smile faltered. Far across town, Jonathan closed his watch and rose from his desk. A black Rolls-Royce waited outside. The final humiliation was about to begin. The studio lights of Heartlines Live blazed down, hot and unforgiving. Melanie sat center stage in a velvet chair, palms sweating, her smile wobbling as the camera zoomed in. The host, Marsha Lee, famous for her vicious questioning, leaned forward like a predator. "Melanie Porter, America wants to know. Do you regret abandoning your injured husband when he became disabled and broke?" Audience members hissed. Some held posters with Jonathan's face and the words, "Stronger than ever." Melanie forced a trembly smile. "Of course I regret it. I wasn't myself. I was scared. I was depressed. I panicked." Behind the scenes, Jonathan stepped out of a sleek black Rolls-Royce, immaculate in a tailored tuxedo. Evelyn walked beside him, graceful in a satin gown, their fingers loosely entwined. Producers greeted him with nervous reverence. He owned the show now, though Melanie didn't know it. Cameras followed his every move as he strode calmly through backstage corridors toward the wings. Stage crew whispered, "That's him. The billionaire who rose again." Back on stage, Melanie continued digging herself deeper. "I was under a lot of pressure," she told the audience. "Financial stress changes people. But I never stopped loving Jonathan." Melanie waited for sympathetic applause. There was none. Marcia smirked. "Well, let's hear what your ex-husband has to say. Please welcome, the one and only Jonathan Porter." The doors slid open. The audience erupted into gasps. Jonathan walked in strong and powerful, no cane, no wheelchair. With a quiet, controlled confidence that made Melanie's stomach collapse. His skin glowed. His eyes held no love, only calm judgment. He stood beside Evelyn, who looked every inch the queen Melanie had pretended to be. Melanie shot to her feet. "Jonathan. Baby, I'm so sorry." Security gently sat her back down as Jonathan took the microphone. He surveyed the audience coolly. "I was married. I got injured. I believed love meant staying, especially when things get hard." He turned slightly, gaze landing on Melanie. "But Melanie taught me the true meaning of conditional love. She left when I couldn't provide. What she didn't know was that I carried a $100 million inheritance in my name, waiting." The audience gasped. Jonathan continued. "Today, I stand here not to shame her, but to thank her. Because losing her taught me my worth." Melanie sobbed openly. "Jonathan, please. I made a mistake." Jonathan held up his hand, commanding silence in the room. "I forgive you, Melanie. But I'll never trust you again. And I will never take you back. You walked away from a broken version of me. You don't deserve the man I became." Melanie crumbled in her chair. 50 million people watched her final mask shatter. Cameras zoomed in on her ruined makeup and desperate eyes. Jonathan turned to the audience. "Let this be a lesson to the world. Never abandon the people who loved you when they become helpless, because one day, they may rise higher than you could ever reach." The crowd thundered with applause as Melanie slipped lower and lower into her seat, the world watching her defeat, live. 3 months later, the world watched yet again, but this time, for a celebration, not a scandal. Jonathan Porter stood at the front of a rose-covered garden overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Sunlight dipped across the waves as guests gasped at the bride walking toward him, Evelyn, radiant in a pearl-studded gown, her arm looped around her father's. At the end of the aisle, Jonathan smiled with a quiet joy he had never worn before. Not because she made him look good, but because she made him feel seen. The ceremony was elegant but intimate, filled with people Jonathan had met during his recovery, war veterans in suits, survivors of abandonment, single fathers, and young men rebuilding their lives through his foundation. As vows were exchanged, camera drones hovered above, broadcasting the wedding live. Tens of millions tuned in, not for gossip, but for inspiration. Jonathan took Evelyn's hands. "You didn't fall in love with my strength or my fortune," he said. "You fell in love with my recovery. So today, I give you not a perfect man, but a healed heart." They kissed to thunderous applause, the internet exploding with hashtags like #SecondChanceKing and #TrueLoveFindsYou. At the reception, Jonathan tapped a glass gently. "There's just one more wedding gift I'd like to give." A large screen lit up behind him. To everyone's shock, a photo of Melanie appeared, sitting in a grimy laundromat, huddled in a thin sweater, scrolling through her phone. Gasps rippled through the guests and viewers. Jonathan's voice remained calm. "Most people thought my revenge would end on that television show. But the truth is, true revenge is not instant." He smiled as the screen flicked to images, Jonathan signing a $50 million donation to a spinal injury hospital, followed by him tearing up the $50,000 check Melanie had secretly requested from his foundation under a fake name. Yes, Jonathan said, she tried to come back again for money through a sham charity request. Instead, I used that money to build trauma recovery centers in every town she's ever lived in. The room roared. The camera cut back to Melanie, watching the wedding live stream alone, looking shattered. Jonathan raised his glass. To anyone watching who abandoned someone when they no longer looked useful, may your regret last longer than their pain ever did. He slid his arm lovingly around Evelyn. And now, for the real twist. Evelyn lifted a tiny velvet box and opened it, revealing Jonathan's grandfather's original inheritance letter inside. He smiled. We won't be keeping the $100 million after all. Gasps shot through the crowd. We're putting every last dollar into the Porter Pierce Global Foundation, supporting broken men and women worldwide who were thrown away when hurt. He kissed his new wife's forehead. So the next time tragedy strikes someone who loves you, ask yourself. Are you staying out of loyalty, or leaving out of greed? Because one day, they may become everything you ever wished for, without you. Moral lesson: true wealth isn't money, it's loyalty, compassion, and perseverance. Those who stand by you when you're broken deserve to stand beside you when you rise. If this story touched you, subscribe, share with someone who needs hope today, and comment what country you're watching from. Your engagement helps us keep changing lives through stories.